Yeah, we are three partners, like you mentioned. This is me, Juho, and Antti, and we started just 20 years ago. We were recent graduates, just the year before, basically, and managed to win this competition and start an office. Now we are about 50 architects. We're in this 1930s tennis hall space in Helsinki, which is on top of a hotel. And even now, when we only have a day which is 5 hours long, you get some light with the roof lights. So it's nice to have big windows in Finland. We like to travel also with the office. This is some of our architects looking at the, well, I'm sure you know the Mies van der Rohe building here. They are checking out the underside because they have floods in this area. They are considering to have telescopic legs for this building, so it will lift up when it floods. And it sounds pretty amazing, but maybe that will happen. This is a bit closer, the OMA project, yeah. Prada. But yeah, we of course want to be a part of the kind of international discussion on architecture and see what everybody is doing and kind of be a sort of relevant player and part of the discussion and kind of contribute to the architecture world. And to do that, we feel that it's very important to kind of design buildings that have a narrative, that we take it quite seriously and quite sort of literally in a way, that it feels important that people, when they come to one of our buildings, that you kind of begin to understand what the building is and how it works and where you will find various things and how to behave in different spaces, or what's the kind of thinking that the people who built the building have about how they want people to use it. But I'm actually starting with a renovation project. We also do quite a lot of renovations. I think maybe about a third of our work is working with existing buildings at the moment, and it seems to be growing. Of course, it's also the times that I think in general, I guess the architecture work is moving towards maybe building less new and just using existing structures or renovating or extending them or whatever's necessary. But Raili and Reima Pietilä were a couple who became kind of very well known in Finland in the 60s, and then worked through to the late early 90s when Reima passed away, and they kind of ended the office. But this is the design they made for the Finnish embassy in Delhi, in India. And for them, they have an interesting narrative also for this building, which of course guided all the changes that we had to do. But basically, they were thinking that if you're doing an embassy, like how do you both show your own country, but also, of course, respect the country that you're in? Of course, you have to take into account the climate and building methods and things like that. But it's also important to have the kind of symbolism and the thinking and the narrative of what we share, what the Finns share with the Indian people, for instance. And here they thought that probably kind of nature is after all one of the strongest things, and they were thinking about the Himalayas, but also, in a way, Finland is opposite to the Himalayas, that we are a very flat country. But all of our lakes go into kind of scratches across the country. So the whole country, like you can see the lakes are kind of stripes across. And also, of course, the hills in between are in the same shape. So this kind of image of the building is at the same time the kind of Finnish landscape, but also referring to the Himalayas. and kind of bringing out the thinking of or sort of the sort of shared respect to these landscapes. Some wonderful sketches of this roof. It's kind of interesting also now that we use, of course, kind of parametrics quite a lot to make shapes in buildings and stuff, but this was before that. And they basically did this one long line that extends across the whole site and then kind of cut out the buildings. So there was kind of, you can think of it as a big roof that was then cut into separate buildings. So the shapes kind of continue across all the buildings, although there are 7 separate structures. And so the main building in the middle looks like this. This is where you enter to go and meet the ambassador, or to go and to a party or something like that at the embassy. And here as well, they were using the local stone, which sort of comes up from the ground. And this pattern that the stone has is something that's traditional to Delhi. This shape is something that has been traditionally used in that area, and it's the local stone. So it's kind of using the local tradition, but creating this sort of quite sort of flying, expansive, big roof that's inviting you into the building and welcoming people. Most of this was actually more restoration than anything else, and of course security issues and technical things. So we were basically bringing it back to the original shape. Of course, changes had been made, like always in buildings. This is the lobby space, and it had always been this kind of very white place with the alto furniture, like every embassy, as you might expect. So we renovated that. There's also a sauna, although it can be 45 degrees outside. You still have to have a sauna. And that was kind of logs brought from Finland. So it's a kind of literal piece of Finland in the middle of the building. And the kind of new layer is basically just the new security gates. They wanted the, scanning devices and things like this. And so we did these new gates. And here it was, we decided to have some relation to the kind of original architecture, but a different scale, different pattern, using the handcraft abilities, of course, that you can use in India, because in Finland it's hugely expensive to use handcraft to make this shape, but in India that's the cheaper choice, and it kind of makes sense. But basically, these new structures you can't see from the kind of area itself, from the inside. So it was a very sort of light touch to the building. We also worked on another project by Pietilä called Dipoli. And this is a kind of experimental student union building for the University of Technology, which is where I also studied to be an architect. This is basically in Helsinki. It's in a suburb called Espoo, but it was completed in 1966. And now we changed it into the main building of the new university, which is actually called Aalto. Which is maybe a bit similar to you having Mimarsinan here, that it's kind of using these names now to for the buildings. But here it was, of course, also to some extent about or it was the architecture is very kind of nature referencing, but it's more of a kind of cave. So instead of the flying roofs that they have in Delhi, which are of course protecting from the sun, taking the monsoon for kind of climatic reasons, in Finland it's more that the building is a cave, and it's kind of protective and keeping you warm and this kind of thinking. And we managed to. It had been painted white completely on the inside, but originally it had been this kind of concrete, raw concrete. So a few spaces we managed to get the paint off and return it kind of to the original kind of strength of the building. And this is a place where we used to have lunch basically every day when we were students. So it's kind of, I guess it's subconsciously has been with us for all these years. And this is the main hall. And here when we were restoring it, we found out that this shape form here actually, and we started taking parts of it off to be able to clean it and check the ventilation, we realized that it's actually the ventilation pipe, which is this shape, and it's been covered in wood. So it's kind of comes that the form has started actually from this pipe and kind of become architecture and grown from there. It's kind of interesting what you find when you start digging into these, even just modern buildings, which is, it's not that old, but it's this is one of the office spaces now, and these manifold roofs. But to go forward to some of our new, like non-renovation projects, new architecture. I'm going to talk about the Kilden project that you mentioned in Norway for a bit. Here the kind of the starting point was we were recent students and we were doing competitions, and luckily in the Nordics competitions are anonymous, so they don't know who did the entry, and when you if you manage to do something that's convincing, you can win, like we did. We didn't have any company, we didn't have any kind of structure to it. It was just the four of us then. Janne has left the company about 10 years after this. But and it was quite an adventure. I mean, the first thing we did, we had to hire people who are older than us and have more knowledge and can actually carry out the project. But we had worked in offices, and we of course did have some sense of how to run projects. Kristiansand is only 80,000 people. And actually Juho's father was used to be the technical head of the Helsinki City Theatre. So we had this kind of back of house understanding that how, of course, the stage is important in a theatre, and that's where all the kind of magic happens. But actually, as a building, the kind of logistics of everything that happens behind is in a huge role. That everything has to be in the right place, and it has to really work, because otherwise everything else just completely fails. And so we sort of started building up that, and then we started thinking about like the kind of more of what the architectural expression should be. What do we want to say? And we started thinking about this, the idea of the fourth wall, which is on stage, that you have the three walls that you could see, which are the kind of set, and then the actors, and then the actors pretend that the audience is not there, and they're just doing whatever. And then sometimes they of course break this wall, and they might speak to somebody directly, or kind of, and we kind of thought that, okay, we'll play with that a little bit, that we'd like to move, because this is the kind of line where you could think that the fourth wall is in all of the halls. There's the stage in the front, and there's the audience in the blue area, and we wanted to move that fourth wall actually to the front of the building. So instead, all of this could be kind of considered the back of house, and let's say the outside life is the kind of on the outside of the building. So basically just the idea that as soon as you kind of go through into the past of the main surface, you're kind of in the world of the theater, although you're kind of still actually in the foyer. But this brought out the fact that we had to give a shape somehow to this fourth wall. Like what does it look like? And we started thinking that instead of having the theater tower, which is blank and just a box, which is often something that you recognize to be a theater, instead of that, we wanted to bring out the auditoriums. like bring out the fact that this is where the people are, and following the play or the concert. And so we came up with this wooden wall, which is at the same time kind of describing that we have 3 halls, but also giving it kind of one uniform expression. And it's using the local oak, because Kristiansand was founded in the 16th century to export oak to Europe for shipbuilding and piling of houses and such. So it's kind of what made the city is oak. And for the rest of the building, we just wanted to make a kind of simple black box. There's also an aluminium factory across the fjord on the other side. So this was also a kind of local material. So it's really looking out into the landscape and into the evening sun. So you get these patterns, the shadows of the window mullions running on this surface and across this surface in the evening when you're coming to the concert. But then, so for us, the kind of separating kind of outside life or sort of reality from the fantasy of the theater, we wanted all the materials on the kind of outside to be natural and understandable as materials, but as soon as you step inside, it becomes just color and kind of not natural light, but lamps and man-made light. So there's a huge change as you go through this wall. Everything changes into this kind of man-made, unnatural in a way, kind of fantasy side. I was a local artist who then worked on the wall and made these layers and layers and layers of paint, and then sanded them down into this kind of almost water-like surface. And the theater hall is sort of used either as just the ground level for less people, and then when you light up the top, it's more like an opera, and you have a balcony. And there's a smaller hall in between, and a couple of even smaller. There's like 5 small halls altogether. And then the concert hall was more about being a sort of acoustic kind of echo chamber. So we have this wooden vessel where the orchestra is playing, and the audience are kind of both in this together. And then there's this black darkness of black concrete, which is what the acousticians kind of say, that you have to have heavy materials reflecting the sound for it to work acoustically. There's rehearsal halls and back of house spaces, and this back wall, which in one direction you cannot see any windows, but when you kind of look at it a bit from the different side, then you see all the windows. And it's basically structurally it's super simple. It's the concrete halls and then this steel overhang with the wooden units installed on top. This was actually made by boat builders just in the area in Kristiansand. That every single piece here, this image explains it maybe better, is a different shape. So every plank is actually slightly getting smaller towards the top, and that's how when you place them all into place, you finally get this shape, because the top line is 100 meters and the bottom is like 300 meters. So there's a big kind of change. But yeah, this was a great adventure for us, of course, and when we managed to get it done in budget and learn to speak Norwegian, which was nice. And then it meant that we could get more theaters, and this is like a 1960s theater that you can see kind of on the side here. And then there's the extension, which is a new hall, and it opens up to the same tower. So you can actually have a play with audiences in two directions, even if you want, from under the tower. And there's this new foyer looking over a lake, so you get a new view in a different direction. After which we were doing another theater in a city called Lappeenranta, which was kind of interesting because they were building this shopping center. There's 3 floors of parking and 3 floors of shopping, and then the theater on top. And we were like, I'm not sure if this is a great idea, but actually, in a way, we started thinking about it as a way of the kind of theater coming back to its roots, because theater sort of started in marketplaces. People started acting, and somebody's following, and it became theater kind of developed like that. So in a way, it's going back to its roots. That it's going back to the marketplace, which nowadays is a shopping center. But yeah, it's a fairly simple structure. Then a few years later, there was this central library competition in Helsinki. Maybe some of you did an entry as well. There were like almost 700 entries to this competition. It was also anonymous, but I think we kind of, being from Helsinki and knowing the kind of discussions that have been going on for basically 100 years in Helsinki about the need of a new library, that it of course helped us kind of create something that really was about kind of what they wanted and what the program was and what the needs were for the city. Of course, we have this long history of public libraries. This is like from 1881, the first public library in the Nordics. This is the Kallio Library. I think this is, Hüseyin, your closest one. It's a beautiful kind of Art Nouveau or Jugend style building. This is kind of the first time that they started to have, for instance, like a children's room separately in libraries. So the library kind of started developing towards what we now know as libraries. This is the Aalto Library in Viipuri from 35. And the Seattle Library by OMA, which was somehow quite important for us when we were students. Antti, one of my partners, actually worked at OMA on this project for a while. But I think from here we kind of took the idea that it seemed logical to have these sort of open floors and enclosed floors, because the program in libraries is quite dipolar in that way, that there are certain things that just want a enclosed box and be on their own, and certain things that are good to have kind of open. So in this project, there's this division between the open reading rooms and the kind of rest of the program. But it's just to say that the kind of libraries have really kind of, the things that are done in libraries has sort of exploded around sort of 1980s, 1990s, and it's still kind of getting wider and wider and wider, and what's kind of going on. And the French have, for instance, they've been trying to call them mediathèques, but that doesn't really necessarily work either. We also call libraries, like it's a book place, basically, in Finnish. So the book is of course still very important, but for instance, in this project, only about a third of the spaces actually have books, and the rest is other things. Well, this is Helsinki. It's just about beginning to look like this now. The sea is freezing. I just got a picture from home yesterday where there's ice over there, so you can ski out to Estonia. But yeah, it's a cold place. So basically, we need indoor public spaces, and we need indoor public spaces where you don't need to buy anything, and you're very welcome to just come in and do whatever you like. Basically, it's as long as you're not disturbing somebody else. You could basically do what you want. So the location is extremely central for Helsinki. This is the main railway station right here, and the parliament and other public buildings. So this is like basically the most central place that was still unbuilt in the center. It's because it used to be a big train depot area. And the thing is, we have so many of these architectural competitions. Like these are the years when all of these projects had architectural competitions. So our National Museum had an architectural competition in 1902. And I think that's the first public, like open architectural competition possibly in the world. I'm not sure if I can really say that. Maybe, you know, who knows what they did in antiquity, but at least, you know, what the Finnish Architectural Union claims is like that. But and then 1902 was the railway station competition and so forth. So basically every building you can see from the library was done through an anonymous architectural competition, except the Aalto Finlandia Hall, because Aalto was so well known that it was just ordered from him and they didn't have a competition, but everything else. So yeah, this is the National Library, the Parliament by Siren, 1925, Aalto's Finlandia, Stephen Hall's Kiasma, our contemporary art museum, from 93. This main newspaper building by Sark, 95. The music hall from 2000, by Laiho Pulkkinen Raunio. So all of these buildings are around, but they're all quite hard. They're sort of very rectangular. They're kind of either glass, stone, steel, or actually copper, but kind of hard materials. And we felt that it's also, I mean, it's the end of this park that's opening towards the north. And the idea is that you can actually go into the central park and all the way kind of to northern Finland, basically in forest continuously from this location. So it's kind of the heart of Finland coming to the center here. And so we felt something soft, also something wooden, would be very appropriate for this place. And so we started thinking about the directions, how you should go through the building and what you can see, and the sort of, this edge of the building we wanted to relate to the parliament, which was in a slightly different position. And then what I was mentioning, that we would have an open ground floor, a closed second floor, and an open third floor. This was a kind of a long analysis process where we several weeks kind of spent organizing the program in different ways, and came up with this kind of set of vision for the project, and thought that should work well for the process. The basic thinking is that the top level is where you would actually read a book and kind of maybe understand something, think of something new. The middle floor is where you would create something yourself. And then the ground floor is where you share it with the city, with the public. And this is the kind of division into three, so that whatever new programming they can think of, it will always fit into one of these things. It's either consuming new information, creating new stuff, or sharing it. And that's basically gave quite a sort of strict order to the project, and allowed us to kind of make all the choices that you need to make designing a building like this. For us, the wood was of course, it's a very natural material for Finns. The country is full of forest, and this was decided that it's the kind of 100th anniversary of Finnish independence project, so it became a kind of symbol, a little bit kind of politically, of kind of Finnish democracy. And it's also, libraries are the most loved public service in Finland. So whenever people are asked, like, what do they consider that tax money should go to? The first is libraries, and then maybe, hospitals and water, I think, was somewhere there, and like this. But they also had an interesting process with the public. So, for instance, one thing was that they had 28 people who had been chosen from very different areas of the city, so that they would somehow represent as different groups from the city that they could find. And they came in every week during 4 months, and we discussed with them like how they feel the design would work for their group of people, and should it be changed in some way? Something missing? Can we take out something? So they kind of became a part of the decision process in what to actually have in the library, what the programming is. And then they also had a few kind of campaigns, just 2,300 ideas from the public that they got online. Luckily, they have professionals who are kind of making shorter lists for us, so we didn't have to read through absolutely everything. They're kind of translating it into what it might be as a built thing, like these ideas, because there were all kinds of thoughts, of course. And they even had 100,000 euros of funding, which the public could decide what it's used for. There was a kind of vote, and then that money was used for that thing. It ended up being a few different things, but for instance, a kitchen that people could use. Yeah. But it's, we wanted also to create this covered outdoor space, because we have a fair amount of bad weather, and it's, we wanted it to be very easy to have events, because we knew the parliament is opposite, so there's bound to be like political events and things going on here. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible, and there were like these structures from the roof that you can hang beams and take lighting and sound and different things very quickly, and you don't have to like rent a tent or something like that. That everything's basically there, and you can just start speaking or making music or whatever the event is. And of course, as you expect, the amount of people visiting libraries went up quite a lot. I mean, in 2019, we had almost 3 million visitors, and we only have 500,000 living in Helsinki, so people came on average 6 times. But of course, this is also people from other places, so it's yeah. So in the basement there are large restrooms which are shared by everyone. So basically, there's no division into men and women or anything else. There's like you wash your hands together and then you just take your booth, and that's it. It's shared, and it's a kind of reference to the city hall in Helsinki. Actually, has a similar arrangement. But the ground floor, which is about sharing, we have the cinema, there's a sort of family library, there's a restaurant, multi-purpose hall, exhibitions, this kind of things, all the things that are about sharing, representing or presenting things. And this, we felt that the best way to show that the floor is about gathering is this big kind of dome. It will pull people together, and it's an understandable shape. People, it's, of course, traditionally for structural reasons, public spaces have been big domes. So it's a kind of still a symbol that's subconsciously easy to understand and read. And it's just the division of the elements, like it's made of pieces, of course, that have been installed into the ceiling. It's Finnish spruce, so the kind of the Christmas tree type of tree, which is the most common tree that we have, together with pine. And this is the kind of double helix stair that connects all the floors. So it's sort of, if you come in from the park, you'd take this kind of slow entrance. The multipurpose hall. And then if you go up to the second level, you're kind of inside the building, and we wanted to like literally sort of inside the structures of the building, and it wanted to make it feel almost like more like an attic or something that is not finished. Importantly, because we felt that if everything is super kind of ready and feels monumental, they will not ever change anything. It's important that the librarians feel that they can take down a wall and build a new wall, do a change. So there's no ceiling, there's an installation floor, and everything seems a bit kind of slightly rough. And the structure is actually a 100-meter long bridge, because we were not allowed to have foundations in the middle because of a tunnel reservation. So we thought that we might as well create this kind of big bridge. The problem with that, of course, is the bridges move, and we built a glass building on top, so it's kind of complicated structurally, but everything can move a little bit, and it works, at least so far. Everything's been fine. There's in this middle floor where you make things yourself, it's basically, this is like gaming and virtual reality rooms. Then there's this big desk with, for instance, sewing machines, because they feel it doesn't make sense to own a sewing machine because you only use it 3 times a year, so you can just use it at the library. This is the kitchen. There's a lot of people who have so small kitchens in the city that you can't really invite friends, but you could just book this kitchen and invite your friends there. And everything is free. You know, you're not paying for anything. The only rule is that you have to use your previous reservation of whatever it is before you can make a new reservation. That's the only limit. This is the music studios. You could have, it's 7 rooms and a mixing chamber. And the reading room. And yeah, visitors to libraries went up almost 50% after this building. And also the library cards and loans, of course, in the same way. And when you go up to the top, then this is where the books are. It's only 100,000 books at any given time, but it's a floating collection of 4 million. So according to what's lent, they will bring more of that and take away some of the stuff that nobody's lending. So it's continuously changing. And you can, from the storage, you can, in one day, you can get any book by ordering it. So it's a kind of mixed. And the top floor is this sort of calm, open space. The shelves are low, so that even from a wheelchair, or if you're a smaller person, you can reach all the books. Which means that you can see over the shelves, which kind of made us think that maybe the roof is actually the kind of main thing in this space, and you have to bring that out. And became this sort of natural, kind of a bit cloud-like surface, which is soft. So the acoustics, it's very quiet, although the children are well, there are not so many children in this picture, but this is the children's area, and they are actually quite loud if you're standing here, but when you're at the other end, you cannot hear them at all. So it works quite well. There's a hidden reading room behind the shelf as well, that you push a shelf in, and you can find this room. An open terrace. And it's, net zero energy and low carbon footprint. I'll say a few words about the airport. This is where you kind of have, I guess, 3 of these big sort of public buildings that have a big sort of wooden roof. And this is the third. We feel that all come from very different reasons. Here we were thinking that the airport should have this sort of public open square in front without any cars, and then have this sort of let's say soft sort of exciting landscape, calming kind of landscape on top, which is then making the roof, so that it sort of feels exciting again to fly. That that there's, because we've kind of seem to have lost the sort of excitement of flying in some way. Of course, one reference is AURA Suare, who sorry, TWA, yes, exactly, from 62. He's well, he was born in Finland, but I guess he was more American in the end than Finnish. But of course, his father Eliel designed the railway station, which is next to our library, and was a very well-known architect in Finland. But yeah, this is an exciting kind of, this was from the period where flying was still kind of somehow new to the public and exciting and interesting. And so we felt that we could maybe have some of that, but bring this sort of wood and calmness and nature also into the airport, which doesn't often feel that way. The airport had become a kind of collection from all kinds of different decades, which they often are. Actually, here is the building that was finished in '69 by Keijo Ström, and the project architect who was running the team was actually Turkish, called Albert Filosof. He's my uncle. But he was running that project, and we kind of extended that building, or we attached the new building to that 60s building, and that's how you go into the project. But all of these buildings are from different periods, so it's kind of a mess. So we wanted for the new entrance building to be different somehow and softer, not so much about the kind of, many times airports are sort of about the kind of technical fantasy of flying, and you have a lot of steel and kind of wings of metal and things like this, and we thought maybe that's not what's needed anymore, and actually people need to maybe calm down and get their kind of pulse down instead of think about the technical side of the flying so much. So that's the location of it. Basically, this is how you enter. So it's just a big check-in hall, check-in counters on both sides, and then the blue part is the security check, and then you go into the older buildings, or the ones that were there before the project, which are all airside after this project was built. And as you come out, you just come straight out to the square, to the train, to the buses, to the taxis. Everything is close. And so this is this sort of form that we came up with. That it's not. It's actually kind of quite heavy. It's not trying to look light, but it is a little bit maybe flying. But for us, it's in many ways more about contours and landscape and maps, and it's kind of an upside down landscape, if you like. Steel structure inside and the wood on top. It's made of this LVL board, which is just planks of wood glued in two directions into a board like that, and then there's a little gap with wool, and the next one is just a stack of kind of these boards with this oculus in the middle to give a bit of natural light when we have it. And this was partially inspired by Tapio Virkkala, who is this modernist sculptor, who made this sculpture, for instance, in '67 for the Montreal World Expo. And it's also kind of a sanded plywood, sanded kind of airplane plywood, actually, because then they were still making airplanes out of plywood. And like I was saying, it's more of a map. This is like Lapland, the hills in northern Finland. And this is the contours of our ceiling. So the dark lines are kind of 10 meter, or well, actually 1 meter contours, and the actual boards are 10 centimeter contours. So you can see it. See it built. So in a way, you can think of it as a Finnish landscape. And we decided to add some actual trees as well. So when you enter the country, you come and meet real kind of Finnish trees. The security area we're not allowed to take photos of, so these are renderings. But it's basically, there's a very clear cut to the blue security and the sort of lightness of the rest of the airport. I can show you this, the library in Lyon. This is it's a 60s campus just outside the city. And there's this kind of structuralist existing campus buildings, and they tore down. They had already decided to tear down their existing library, which was a sort of also a little bit brutalist architecture, but with it had gotten into really bad shape, and they couldn't think of a way of fixing it anymore. So they had a competition, and this is an academic library. So actually, there's a lot of books which are mainly on the lower floor, and this upper open floor is kind of more about the students meeting each other and arranging stuff, a reading room, and the kind of reference library. But the budget was very tight, and so basically the wood is only on the beams and the columns, and then it's a very simple structure otherwise. And, yeah, the lower levels, which is all the kind of there's some researchers' chambers and storage and other rooms, so that's kind of going into the ground, and it has these concrete slabs, and there are small gardens here which are also shading from the sun on that side, and then the open top floor. So the section is something like that, and it's kind of, well, this is actually already maybe 3 months old from the site, so it's being built. I could, yeah, I don't know how much time do I have, but I could maybe show you Kotka, if that's, yeah.
You can continue.
Yeah, it's okay.
No problem.
This is an event center in Kotka. So this is the city which is the last city before Russia, in kind of on the southern edge of Finland, in the like easternmost corner. And there used to be a big hub for wood. So all of these structures here are actually just planks in big piles. So it's timber. All of these, and the ships used to have to stay further out, and they brought the planks with smaller boats into the city. So this is like the main harbor of Kotka. There was a competition for a maritime museum in 2004. This was actually the first competition we did with Juho and Antti, and we did this kind of I don't know what to call it, but this kind of we decided that we place the program into very strict stripes, and then we just vacuum wrap it somehow, and this is what it became. And we got an honorary mention, so then we thought we should maybe do another competition, and that's how we got the Norwegian project then later. But this was on this site, and now a few years later now, we got this new project for an event center. So it was actually our professor Ilmari Lahdelma who won the competition for this project, and he built this kind of wave-like huge maritime building here, maritime museum building. There, yeah. Well, this is our project, yeah, and that's the maritime museum. The problem in Kotka is since the Russian border is, of course, has been closed, so they don't get any like tourists from there like they used to. There used to be a lot of Russians in the area, and they were like buying things and staying on holiday, and there's a lot happening. But that's off now, so they are kind of struggling on how to survive, and this is kind of part of their strategy now, that they thought that they should build this event center so that they can get events, so people and kind of money into the city. And they also built a university, a new university building, and they will build a hotel. So kind of this combination is something that they think will help with the kind of future of the city. So that's the site plan. This is our project. That's the university by another architect, and we're hoping to design the hotel. We've made a design, but it hasn't been built yet for the hotel. And so, basically, in a way, it's a very simple building. There's one huge box, which is the hall, and everything is kind of centered, of course, on this. So you have the loading on the other side, which, because of this railway track here, is cut off from the city. So actually, from the city, everybody has to come around from here, which is why the entrance is on the other side. So it's a bit of a funny arrangement that you kind of have to come round. But the basics of the hall is that you have to be able to divide it into all kinds of different sizes and for different types of events. And it can be, it's about 2,000 square meters, the floor area, but you could have up to 3,200 people in the sort of extra large event. And the lobby would continue from the hotel through our lobby to the lobby of the university. But then, of course, we have the box, and since we need a big lobby because it's a lot of people, we decided that it would be actually nice to just kind of hang the roof. So in a way, we have this box and we have opened one edge, and this is where you enter. And that's basically it. It's kind of it is literally hanging. So it's actually a wooden structure which is in tension. The plan itself is very simple. That there's the hall. We have the loading on this side, back like stage backspace is here, and then a kitchen and such on that side. Toilets between the hall and the lobby. And then the kind of some meeting rooms, offices, changing rooms, and technical on top. So it's basically more or less a simple kind of wooden box. Because of fire regulations, they ended up, the local authorities, we don't always have to use concrete, but here they said that we have to have the stairs in concrete, but the rest of the building is basically completely made out of wood, other than the roof structure, and then the vertical structure which is holding up the hanging roof. So maybe here you can kind of see that best, that it's literally hanging, and these columns are keeping it out, and then there are some cables which are going straight down to the ground, which are tensioning it so it stays in place. And of course this means that we can have less structure, less material, because it's hanging. So it's kind of more economical, more ecological, and easy to build. and then the roof is just covered in the kind of base with wood, and then what's it called? This kind of tar paper. Yeah, and then a zinc covering on top. So you end up with basically this kind of zinc box, which is actually completely wood inside. So there's a sort of big change in here, and because it's massive zinc, you don't really need to do anything to it. It's not painted or anything. It's just zinc. So they say, at least the company says, you don't have to do anything for 100 years. Hopefully longer. Let's see. It will, of course, the shine will go away a bit, and it will get kind of a little bit darker, but that's it. And we wanted to sort of not really give so much attention to the windows and stuff, so we have this sort of fins covering the back of house to make it into a sort of unified shape, and then to be able to have the connections. This is not exactly the direction you come, but it's basically because actually the hotel will be here. So when you arrive, you'll arrive like this, and then go in. So you kind of see the wooden surface when you're coming from this direction. So it's giving you a kind of understanding that the warm space is underneath this roof. That this is where you need to go. It's kind of catching people in that direction. And it was interesting to discuss with the landscape architects what to plant in this area, because it's all harbor, but it's actually, they have a very interesting plants, because all the ships have brought all kinds of plants from around the world to the harbor. So they have amazing kind of like very rare plants, which were just from somewhere else, which they wanted to keep. And so we planted a bit more of this kind of rare, exotic, not super exotic, but still not common in Finland, plants, because there are also insects who live in these particular plants and a lot of other things. So the ecosystem will remain kind of the kind of old industrial created ecosystem that it now is. Yeah, so that's the entrance. And these are the columns holding up the large beams, and these are the steel rods going all the way to the rock to hold it down. And so it's a very kind of simple space. You have the roof lower down here where people are maybe a bit noisier, and then the clinging of the eating and things like that you get. There's a soft surface between each piece of wood. There's almost as much of kind of wool. So it's also taking the sound. And yeah, we have these kind of a bit sort of fish-like scales, and slightly kind of, there used to be big boats just in front here. And there's stairs are sort of kind of similar structures to the steel boats that came a bit later, that they have this same aesthetic to them. And this was a 1960s sculpture from this city that we managed to get back here and placed it into the lobby. And the hall is basically a black box, but we wanted to show this sort of fact that they had all this wood back in the time. This is the way how you transport wood in Finland, that you make it into these rafts and you pull it with a boat from over the lakes. So that's the easiest way, so you don't have to take it onto the road. Of course, lorries are also used, but this is the most traditional and still used when you can. But this is sort of reflected in the walls in the hall. But actually these shapes are describing how the auditoriums are used in different situations in the hall. So you can have, the first level is just if everything is a flat floor, then these areas have the wooden reflectors. In some positions, when the auditorium is like this, you need them here. There's another position there, another like this. So then it becomes this combination, which is kind of also describing the different uses of the hall as a kind of pattern, because the acousticians said that we need 3 meters from where you're standing, you need this modulation. But the 3 meters where you're standing varies in this building, so you kind of end up with a shape. This is from the opening night. It's a bit like last night when we were in this event. Yeah. But I think, I mean, I have a single image of each of the metro stations that we did in Helsinki that I could maybe still show you. But basically, the metro line that goes west of the city, they wanted to have understand, like when you were still in the train and looking at the station, that you understand where you are. So every station has to have some kind of a message of where you are, but they have very strict rules that you have to have this surface, which is solid, and a stone floor. So basically what you have left is kind of this space, what you can use. And in this case, it was actually these artists, Grönlund and Nisunen, who did these neon tubes to sort of visualize the business district, which is above, because it's all about towers and pedestals and this kind of very modernist buildings. So this is kind of their version of that. This is the Otaniemi station. So this is reference to the Alvar-Aalto brick campus, and it will take you up to the bricks if you follow this roof into the top. Espoonlahti is best known for its swimming hall. So there's some reflection of that. And this is a station that's so deep in the rock that it only has very big elevators, because it would take too long to take an escalator. So it's kind of it has a bit of the sort of rock forms that exist. It's kind of the whole area is on this hill. And this is one of the suburbs with very straight lines and long buildings and towers. So it's kind of simple but recognizable. But I think I'll finish there.